Saurav Ghosal, India's squash sensation, known for his agility and precision on the court, has made his mark as one of the best players produced by India. In my conversation with Sourav on Grounded, he reveals his unique approach to handling pressure, which is dissociating from his emotions to maintain focus and avoid mistakes. As a mentor, Sourav has been instrumental in guiding young players, sharing his wealth of experience and insights to help them navigate the challenges of professional squash. Looking ahead, Sourav shared his plans post-retirement, emphasizing his commitment to stay connected with the sport and contributing to its growth in India. His message for young athletes is clear. Mental challenges are a part of the game, but with the right mindset and resilience, they can be overcome. Join me on Grounded as we delve into the psychology behind elite athletes with Saurav Ghosal. Thank you so much for joining us on Grounded, Sourav. It's a pleasure to have you here. We'll get straight into the questions. So, first of all, I'd like to ask you, you've had a very long career. You've been fortunate enough to see two parts of the game, where one, there was no talk of mental health, there was no awareness, versus now, where you have specialized coaches, you have so much help behind an athlete. How much of an impact do you think this has had? The awareness of mental health, is it good or bad, according to you?
I think you're right in saying, that the kind of two phases in my career. The initial phase obviously is, you're thinking about everything that's going on in your head, but it's not something that you kind of like speak out to anyone really, right? You just think that it's part of the process. It's quite normal to think like that. You're in like ridiculously high pressure situations, and these are thoughts that kind of are bound to come at different points in time, and you try and find the best ways possible to deal with it internally as much as possible. And then we have a phase now where obviously, there is a lot of talk about it in the general media and in the sports world, of course. But in general as well, as an athlete, you kind of feel that there are a lot more people who are willing to listen and not kind of treat it as whimsical or like a taboo or something like that. And I think that progress is great. What I would say is that, we sign up to be athletes, pressure comes with it. And it's important to kind of understand for yourself as to how you can or cannot deal with it. Everyone is different. There's no one size fits all. And it's important to also kind of, gauge for yourself how far you're letting it affect you. So, when I equate it to like the physical side of things, right? We are talking about mental health, and obviously for time immemorial, we've talked about physical health, right? So, sometimes, you wake up in the morning and you're feeling super sore and, you're really tired and you don't want to train, right? But you push yourself, right? You push yourself and say, okay, if I go into training today, that is going to be the difference between me winning and losing 3 months down the line. Again, you go on scientific data to make sure that you're not going to get injured, but you toe the line where you're walking a tightrope. That's the fact of it. And I think the same kind of has to apply to mental health as well. I think you do need the right help to deal with situations that are or thoughts that are integral to your well-being and your happiness as a person. But at the same time, you shouldn't, use that as an excuse in your head, not for the outside world, in your head to say that this is what is making me weak. That is important as well. And of course, if there is something which is gnawing away at you, then it is a problem, right? It is an issue that you need to seek help for. And I think that's where we made a lot of progress in terms of having that help available to us more readily than it has ever been. But I think as individuals, specifically as athletes, where we know that we are putting ourselves in the firing line, so to say, we are bound to have those kind of phases, so to say, of dealing with things which are going to be very difficult for you. It's not easy, right? And that's normal. It's not abnormal. So to think that, this is too hard and something is wrong with me might not be the right answer in your head, right? So I think discerning what really requires that help, and what requires you to kind of like steel yourself a little bit and say that, you know what, I can deal with this, and I've trained all my life to be where I'm at, and this is the opportunity that I have to show what I've got. I think that's the important bit right now, where we have to find the right balance to make sure that, you know, we do it the right way. And at the end of the day, we all want to perform, we all want to win, and we all want to do great by our country and our team and everything. So I think if we can find that right balance, that's just going to give us the best possible chance of doing that.
Right, that's interesting. And I want to know, in your career, personally for you, do you think bad physical health, or like you said, sometimes you wake up and you're sore, you don't necessarily want to train, does that affect your mental health, or does bad mental health affect your physical being? Like, what's the relationship with you?
I think the causation is both ways. You know, when you're, I think some of the worst times in my career have been where I've been injured, right? You know, I'm not being able to do what I want to do, or not to the level at which I want to do it at. And the joy of playing comes from being able to do it at the level that I'm capable of, right? We are crazy people in that sense. We enjoy it when we win. We enjoy it when we play well, right? And if you're injured, you can't do that, right? Either you can't play at all, or you can't play to the level that you want to, and hence you're not winning, right? So that causes a lot of stress in your head. It makes you feel incomplete in a lot of ways, and makes you kind of question where, you know, when this is all going to end, and you're going to be able to like play freely without, I wouldn't say without any niggles, because you always have something, but, you know, for the most part of it, you know, being able to play freely as much as possible. And then on the other side of the spectrum, if, you know, there are things going on in your personal life or in general where you're feeling really low about yourself, you're going to get tired a lot quicker. There's no doubt about that. You know, like something very small, you know, when I go into matches where I genuinely want to play, and I genuinely want to kind of almost run through walls and things like that, just mentally, right? There's nothing to do with my physicality at that point in time. Just mentally, I want to like really have a go. Almost like, you know, I don't know if you know, I should really watch this cartoon called Scooby-Doo, right? And Scrappy-Doo, you know, used to always be like, let me at him, right? So if I always, like, whenever I've had that attitude in my head that, you know, I really want to
Like
get at
insanity.
him, right? I really want to go there, right? And it's, yeah, you're right, it's insane in a lot of ways, but my physicality might be at the same level, but I just felt like I could just go longer, right? So that plays on your physical side for sure, right? And on the other side of it, if you're like not, you know, feeling that good, and you're saying that, oh, do I really want to like play long rallies, or you know, like I feel like I'm jaded, or I'm tired, blah blah, you're going to start and you're going to feel tired a lot quicker, right? So I think it's a causation on both sides, and I think that's a good understanding of why both are very important and both carry equal weightage. So obviously for a long time we've always thought about physicality being the more important thing, physical health being the more important thing, not just in sport but in society. But you know, in life in general, both the mental side and the physical side together makes you the person you are, and gives you the performances that you can produce. So the weightage is equal on both. Of course, they oscillate at different points in time in terms of percentages, but on an average, the weightage is same on both sides.
Right. Now, Sourav, I think back to the time, you know, Asian Games team finals, Abhay Singh was getting really nervous, really excited. But at that time, you were going up to him, giving him some insights, I'm not sure what. But that's the question actually. What are the conversations like when you're going up to someone, going up to maybe a junior player in the team? Are you trying to calm them down? Are you trying to hype them up? What are those conversations like?
See, I mean, the team final is against Pakistan. I don't think you need any more hyping up. I think just the thought of that is enough. It's you know, a very turbocharged atmosphere, and you know, Abhay, as most young players are. I mean, I was similar when I was young. You know, you're very excitable, and you know, you want to kind of do things which are inhuman almost to a certain extent, and show that, you know, you can win, and things like that. But you know, in situations like that, I think, at least for me, my experience says that if you can, you know, pull yourself back from the situation and almost detach yourself to think in a very calculated manner, so that you can execute the plans that you have in place, the chances of you coming out on the right side of the result are a lot higher. So for him, you know, it was also a question of, you know, he's playing Pakistan. I also feel from all the times that I've played against them, that when it gets emotional, when it gets charged up, they actually play better. right? It was almost in the game plan as well, other than the technical side of it, to almost like suck the emotion out of the entire situation as much as possible, to
Right.
make it as cold as possible as it possibly could be, right? And the discussions were basically about trying to reiterate and re-emphasize the small kind of details that we needed to execute in that final when Abhay was playing, to be able to be most effective. Because when the emotion comes into play, you play on instinct, right? And playing on instinct against the Pakistanis in general is not the best idea, right? So it was trying to kind of like tell him that you need to play these patterns, you need to stay detached, you need to stay kind of get away from all the talking and the chirping and all of that, and just focus on the job, right? And calming him down was important because he is a very excitable character, and I think everyone knows that, right? So to kind of get him to understand that and rein him in a little bit. So I think that's what we were trying to do. I don't think it worked for the entirety, but I think at the crucial points it kind of did work and went our way. So we're happy about that. But yeah, I think it's playing a sport is as much about the physicality as much as it is about how you deal with situations in your head, and how well you can execute plans. At the top level, everyone has the skill, right? Everyone has the physicality. It's a question of how you can impose what you want to do on the other person, especially in a sport which kind of is based around response, right? So squash, tennis, cricket, they're all based on responses of your opponents, right? So you have to deal with what is coming at you and calculate in your head what you want to do in response to make it as difficult as possible for them. And to do that, I think the best way to do it is to stay as calculated as possible. So that's why, like someone like Mahendra Singh Dhoni, for example, as a white ball captain, right? He's probably the best white ball captain India's ever had. And with CSK also, he's done so well. I think one of the reasons why he's done so well, and he's a great finisher of the game as well, right, is because he's able to, suck himself out of that situation and kind of see almost like a bird's eye view of what
Right.
needs to be done, rather get involved in the flow of the game, so to say, and run with the tide. He kind of stands his ground, and he knows exactly what he wants to do, and he tries to execute it as well as he can, right? And more often than not, he manages it, right? There are a couple of occasions which I'm sure even he's thinking in his head that, man, I wish that worked out, but the chances are that it's going to work out in the right way.
Right. And I'm quite interested that you say that you need to suck out the emotions out of a situation, especially in sport. Is that something you do very often? Do you try to emotionally detach yourself from matches or something?
So I think, there are situations in which when you're feeling really flat, there are days, where you're feeling flat and you're not really able to bring the intensity to the game. I think that's when you almost have to conjure up some emotion to kind of get you going. But for the most part, playing on the big stages, you have, the will to kind of really perform, right? So
Right.
the chances of you being flat are low, right? Then there's something really wrong on that day, right? So for most of the time, I feel, for me at least, this is not for everyone, but for me at least, I play my best when I have extreme clarity of what exactly I want to do, depending on what the opponent is throwing at me. I have like 3, 4, 5 different plans in my head, different patterns of play that I want to execute. And I'm basically playing not to beat people purely on technique and physicality. I'm playing to beat people by outthinking them, right? If I can outthink them, then my technique and my physicality doesn't need to work as hard to win, right? And if I can get to a point where all this doesn't need to work as hard to win, then the chances are that I'm going to win more often, right? So you're trying to do whatever you can to use less of everything that you have to actually win, right? Because that increases your chances. So even if I'm playing at like a 65-70% in terms of my technique and my physicality, but if I'm outthinking them, I'm winning, right? But if I'm doing it the other way around, if I'm not outthinking them, the same player on the same day, I have to probably play at like 85-90%, which is not easy, right? People think it's very easy to produce 85-90% every day. It's very rare.
Yeah.
It's very rare, right? You're probably talking like 2-3 days in a year, right? During matches when you're playing like between like that 85 to 95 thing, and that 100% is like once or twice in your career, right? On match days,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's the whole. It's a game, right? You're playing that game with yourself, and that's the challenge, and that's in a lot of ways that's what kind of gravitates me towards sport, because winning is not just about how well you can hit the ball or how far you can run, or how hard you can, like what strength you have. It's so much to do with the mind combined with all of these things, and that's the beauty of any sport, not just squash.
So mentally, you're working twice as hard.
100%.
Yeah. And I'm dying to know this question actually. Because you've had such a long career and time heals things, is there a specific moment that still haunts you, that you still think about?
I mean, there are a few moments. I think, the 2014 Asian Games when I had match ball in the final, I wouldn't say it haunts me. I think that's...
But you do think about it.
I think about it because I don't have that gold yet. Going back to the 23 final as well, in the individuals, I played really well that entire week. I did everything that I wanted to do, played exactly the way I wanted to play. Physically, I was good. We had prepared very well to be able to play like 10 days in a row. Everything was great, right? And then in the final, I was playing well. Everything was fine till the middle of the second. And then, things kind of unraveled a little bit. Yao played well. I had a few issues with my body suddenly. Certain decisions didn't go my way, right? So I don't have that goal, right? So maybe if I had that goal this time, I wouldn't think of it as much because I have that goal. But because I don't have it, it's kind of like it's empty, right? So that's probably why I kind of think back to it a little bit still, right? So I think that is, if you're talking about like one moment, it would be like Asian Games final 2014 when I was 2-love up and then I had match ball and I didn't convert. I didn't hit an error. The guy just played really well, hit a winner. But on another day, it could have gone to the tin or be an Asian Games champion. It would have been great. But I am always of the believer that whatever happens in life happens for a reason. Maybe if that hadn't happened then, and I had won gold, maybe I wouldn't have played this long, right? It's possible, right? So I'm just grateful for everything that I have got. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to be able to do what I've done and play for India for this long, and thankfully win to a certain extent. If it's one moment, that's probably the moment.
And final two questions. What legacy does Saurav Ghosal want to leave behind in squash?
I think what I would like to kind of be remembered with is that I played the game with a lot of dignity, did things the right way, and I entertained people whilst I played. Right? Obviously, I think whatever the achievements are there, they're there. No one's going to take that away. It's going to be there in history. But I think as a person, both on and off the court, I want to be remembered as someone who's genuine, right, and who did things with a lot of grace, and tried to do good by everyone that he came across, both on and off the court. And I think that's really important. I think winning is super important. Don't get me wrong. If you don't win, then what are you killing yourself every day for?
Yeah.
Right? So winning makes it all worth it. But winning and doing it the right way elevates you to another level, where people remember you far longer or remember you for things far greater than just kind of things written in history books in terms of achievements. Because what people will remember in terms of me as a person is never going to be written in the history books. This is only going to be the titles or the achievements and blah blah. But if people remember you by something more, like for example someone like a Roger Federer, right? People remember him, of course, for all the Grand Slams he's won, but also for the way he played and the way he kind of conducted himself both on and off the court, right? So his legacy is going to stay a long time, and is going to probably transcend, and probably already has transcended sport in terms of just tennis player. He's one of the greatest sportsmen ever to have graced this earth.
And finally, a lot of young kids will also be watching this show. So what's your message for younger generations of athletes in squash, maybe other sports as well, when it comes to mental health, when it comes to sustaining a good mental health over a long period of time, over your career, over your sport? What's your message?
Look, I think like I said at the outset, sport is a very black and white scenario. There are hardly any gray areas in sport. So you're pushing yourself into a very high pressure situation day in, day out. What you also have to remember is that, what you produce on the day is a very small percentage of your performance. What really makes that performance is 80 to 90% of what you've done in terms of preparation. So preparation is extremely important, and no one knows better than you, not your coach, not your parents, not your fellow players. No one else knows better than you how well you can prepare for a certain day, right? So you have to know yourself as to how much you need to do and how often you need to do the things to be able to produce at the highest level. Having a healthy lifestyle is important. Small things matter, right? Just because you go onto court or on a track and train really hard for like 3 to 5 hours a day doesn't constitute your entire life, right? The rest of the 20 hours of your day actually determine how well you're going to be able to produce on the day that matters. So, sleeping, eating, what you're doing with your time outside of those training times is very important, not just for your performances, but also for, your physical and mental health. Because these things play a part which is probably not objectively seen, but they do play a part. So if you're sleeping well, right, I'm not going to say sleep at like 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, as long as you're getting the right amount of hours in, you're eating well and not going to like fast food outlets or eating out all the time. And, the other times, you're actually like feeding your brain with like good information and not just on like an Instagram or, gossiping with other people. I think all that energy or that negative energy plays a part, right? So I've been part of, teams where there's been a lot of negative energy. They say that the environment is not great and that's why you're not performing well. Why is that? Because if the negative energy is there, everyone gets pulled down, right? So you want to kind of feed yourself with as much positive energy as possible. And if you can put these things together, these are the things you can control. If you can control these things, the chances are that the uncontrollables for your physical and your mental health are going to take care of themselves for the most part of your career. You're not going to get away with it for the entirety of your career if you're playing long enough, but you will have to deal with it. But for the most part, you're going to be happy and you're going to be physically in good shape and you're going to produce some great performances, and that's going to make you feel even happier and you're going to make the country proud. So that's my mantra to you.
That's a wonderful message. Thank you so much, Sourav, for joining us on Grounded. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you for having me.